What's up guys, my name is Space Marine and I'm here to tell you about my best Protoss vs Zerg build. First we gotta load up the replay, and afterwards I will be telling you guys the exact build order for my strategy. And of course I'm gonna tell you guys point by point, not only the build order but also why I do certain things. I sent my first probe over there to the ramp so I can build a pylon, because if the opponent makes a pool first, then usually you want a zealot on hold to block the ramp, and that is why you need a wall. So we're gonna make a wall over there in case of early pool, but it is really rare the opponent is going for early pool these days. Even though I feel like I lose more to early pool, I think people are saving the strategy for tournaments so people don't get experienced with countering early pool, because honestly I feel like the early pool is the better build most often, of course, because you can still go for a gateway first but be behind. You gotta scout it early and build the zealot before the Mothership core. Well, anyways, let's focus on the build. We sent the first probe out to make a pylon on the wall at 13, and afterwards we sent number 15 probe to build a gateway, and then we built a 16 gas. At 18 supply we are going to send a probe down to build a 19 Nexus, and then we build one more probe. And then we pull a probe from the geyser to build a Cypernetics Core, because we want to build the Cypernetics Core exactly when we have 150 minerals. And of course, as you can see, I don't have 3 on the gas immediately, because you don't need as much gas with this build, especially not when you're expanding. You always want a bit more minerals in the beginning, of course, unless it's PvP. Well, anyways, pylon at 22 supply. It's really important you don't delay this, because otherwise you will be delaying your adept as well. And as you can see, we are scouting. When you see normal gas at that time, and we can click on it and see, alright, he almost have 100 gas at 2 minutes. That's usually a hatch first with a gas pool. And of course they followed up with a third base usually, but sometimes they can choose to go for double queen before the third hatch. And he chose that, but we didn't know that. So the thing you can do here is you can build a Stargate before the Mothership core, then you get your pheonixes really quickly. But you can also, to be safe, build the Mothership core first. So it's gonna gather energy and you're gonna get 2 photon overcharges before he attacks you, if he even attacks you. This block is only to make sure that he doesn't take the third base really quickly, because of course if the more you delay it, the more income you're gonna get later on, which is only gonna matter if the opponent actually takes a third base. And at this point, when you don't see a third base, you probably want to scout his main base for the gas count. So if you see any kind of tech building this early on, before 4 minutes or 5 minutes, you probably want some kind of defense by going avoid ray with 3 gateways behind it. But from here on, like at home, the only thing we did is we built a Stargate as soon as we have 150 gas, and then 2 gateways as soon as we have 300 minerals in our bank. So that is the follow-up from this build. And the thing you want to do with the adepts is of course to go in there, try to get as many drone kills, and at the same time you can choose to send your Mothership core into his main base to kill a few more, like 1 or 2 more drones. But he had really good control and we didn't really kill any with the Mothership core, which is understandable, because I found out after I won this game that my opponent was actually to 50 Grandmaster, and they usually don't fall for those kind of double prong attacks, because they are of course one of the better players. If you are practicing this, you're going to be practicing your multitasking very much, so you can try to take an advantage of your better multitasking in any league. But in Grandmasters League it's kind of difficult because everybody have good multitasking. Well, anyways, as soon as you have 100 gas before you build your first Pheonix, you're gonna build the Twilight, and then afterwards from here on we are only gonna be building Pheonix Adept. Because here's the thing, if he goes for a Roach Warren, you can lift the Ravagers if he's morphing Ravagers with the Pheonixes. Otherwise, the Ravagers are pretty difficult to kill, especially with the control that some players have. That is why we go Pheonixes, because Pheonixes is kind of a counter to Ravager all-in. And of course, the Adepts are killing Zerglings really quickly. That is why we're going Adepts. Usually, you want to have 6 Adepts or 7, and then you want to push out. And as you can see, when the opponent is taking the third base, you probably want to push, but you also want to secure your third base. So here is what I do. I have an Adept on the wall. I have the Mothership Core behind. It should be, you know, at the third base, and then I push with the Adepts. While my Pheonixes, they're trying to get drone kills. You don't want to get queen kills, because that's really tricky sometimes, because then they have a transfuse, and then you don't kill it in time, and it's kind of tricky. You want to mainly focus on getting the drone kills, and it doesn't matter if you take a little bit of damage. That's totally fine. So as you can see here, you want the Mothership Core at the third base, and that probe is maybe gonna survive. It did. And you want to lift the Banelings with the Pheonixes in this case, and then you want to split up, because again, if you have the better multitasking, then you can try to focus fire. If you look at our cam, we are trying to send the Adepts into the main while we are controlling this, and then we're also focus firing. As you can see on the drones, we're trying to focus fire, and then we switch again. But look at my mirrors. I am floating a lot of mirrors, and this is such a big mistake often. But the thing is, as long as you do a lot of damage, it's totally fine to float a lot of resources, because you're of course trying to out micro your opponent. We did insanely amount of damage because we out microed him, but we were floating 1,000 minerals. So the thing you want to follow it up with when you have a lot of resources is you want to go you want to go charge or blink. It's kind of different. Blink is better versus roach only, and charge is better when they go Hydralisk. So it's hard to say what he's actually going to do. I prefer charge, and of course, when we are still at the point where we have 1,000 minerals, we're going to go double robo and forge, and then we just build probes from here on. So as you can see, this is the point. You're defending. Adepts are really good versus Zerglings. It should be an easy point at this point. Your Pheonixes, you don't want to lose any Pheonixes, so the thing you can do here is that you can of course try to pull one away that is damaged. A really cool micro. It's really fun to do as well. If of course maybe not the first time, because you're probably gonna lose the Pheonix pretty often. But here's a little note. You're never gonna learn it if you never do it. People always ask like, how do you do this and this? The only way to actually learn how you do anything is by doing it. So even though you lose a Pheonix to a spore crawler because you were trying to drone harass, it's still good if you just do it. So you practice it and learn it. The first step of learning is to try it out. So just do whatever you want, practice it. I would recommend Pheonix harass with 6 or 7 Pheonixes. How many do we have? I think we have 7. Yeah, 6 or 7 Pheonixes. It's incredibly good. Because Pheonixes gain value over time because of their energy, right? And you want to follow it up with charge immortal, because usually the opponent follows it up with Hydralisk with the lurkers, right? And the best army composition versus lurker Hydra is charge archon immortal, because lurkers are armored, so you can kill lurkers with the immortals, and then zealots are really tanky, and archons, because zealots cost some minerals only, you're gonna use the rest of your gas to archons. So that is why you go for the archons at the same time as zealots, because zealots only cost minerals, and they have high health, they deal a lot of damage, but they are melee, so they need to get close, which means if your opponent have 50 Hydralisk only and you have zealots only, that means that your main army, melee army, is gonna die really quickly, because melee units are usually better when there is less than 20. That's why we go for archons and immortals, so we can try to hit with some ranged units as well. then you can sometimes force field him out, so you only fight 20 high risk. That's also why we have sentries. And you don't want too many sentries because they're more of a support unit. They want to force field something out, and then they want to build a guardian shield. Well, anyways, main army composition: zealot, archon, immortals, and of course the pheonixes from the early game. If they still are alive, then you can try to lift up the lurkers. Otherwise we are gonna go really late +1 attack, because the thing is, +1 attack, well, +2 takes 136 seconds, right? And I'm gonna guess the first upgrade probably takes over 100 seconds, and the forge also takes a lot of time, which means you're gonna spend 250 minutes and 100 gas for +1 attack. That is not worth it. You want the resources to be invested in something that's gonna pay off, right? And when you have 3 bases, this is totally fine to invest in. But when you're on 2 bases, then you probably don't want to go +1, because it takes too long time. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna take your 3rd base before you get the +1. So the thing you can do is to take the 3rd base faster, so you can get more income faster, and then you can take the gas. Well, anyways, if you have any question, you're welcome to ask in the description below. Otherwise, I'm gonna say thanks for watching, and stay awesome.